The waiter came back to the table. He didn't make eye contact with Mark. He looked straight at me, his face arranged in that professional mask of apologetic discretion. He leaned in, lowering his voice, but in the acoustic perfection of that steakhouse, it sounded like a scream. Ma'am, I'm afraid the card was declined. Mark stopped chewing. He looked at the waiter, then at me.
Declined?
His fork hovered halfway to his mouth. Declined? Mark asked, his brow furrowing in that specific way that meant he was already calculating the probability of a bank error.
Try it again.
Try it again.
That's impossible.
That's impossible. The waiter shifted his weight. We tried twice, sir.
We tried twice, sir.
It says, limit exceeded. The air in the restaurant vanished. My lungs were suddenly filled with concrete. The heat rose up my neck, a prickly, suffocating rash of shame. I looked at Mark's confused face, then down at the linen napkin on my lap. In that frozen second, terrified of the question that was coming next, I realized something terrifying. I would rather be 230 pounds again. I would rather be invisible, heavy, and breathless at the top of the stairs than to be sitting here, thin, in a size 8 dress, about to explain why I had secretly spent $7,000 to buy my own husband's desire. It didn't start with a lie. It started with a number on a scale that I had been avoiding for 3 years. 230 pounds. That was the reality of my Tuesday mornings. The scale in the bathroom didn't just measure weight, it measured my failure. I'm 42 years old. We live in a good zip code in New Jersey. We have a 2-car garage, a lawn service, and a diverse portfolio. My husband, Mark, is a good man. But Mark doesn't look at life through a lens of emotion. He looks at life through a spreadsheet. He is a fiscal conservative in the most intimate sense of the word. He tracks our net worth daily. He knows the price of milk within 3 cents. He has a 5-year plan for the roof replacement and a 10-year plan for our retirement in Florida. Efficiency is his love language. And I had become inefficient. I took up too much space in the bed. I got winded walking from the car to the soccer field sidelines. I saw the way he looked at me when we got dressed for church, not with disgust, exactly, but with a kind of resigned disappointment, like I was a depreciating asset he had held onto for too long. We hadn't been intimate in 11 months. So, when my doctor mentioned the injection, when she said the word Mounjaro, it didn't sound like medicine. It sounded like redemption. She talked about metabolic correction. She talked about quieting the food noise. I sat on the crinkly paper of the exam table, my legs dangling, and for the first time in a decade, I felt a flutter of hope in my chest. It felt light. I drove home with the prescription tucked into my purse like a winning lottery ticket. 2 days later, the letter came from Blue Cross Blue Shield. Coverage denied. I called them. I sat on hold for 45 minutes, listening to smooth jazz interrupted by assurances that my call was important to them. When the representative finally answered, her voice was flat. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Your plan doesn't cover
weight loss medications.
It's considered cosmetic.
It's considered cosmetic under your husband's employer policy.
What's the out-of-pocket cost?
I said, my grip tightening on the phone.
Cost?
What's the out-of-pocket cost?
Without insurance.
Without insurance? Roughly $1,100 per month. 1,100. That night, after the kids were asleep, I brought it up to Mark. We were in the kitchen. He was at the island, laptop open, auditing the grocery bill from the previous week. Mark, I started, trying to keep my voice steady. The doctor prescribed something for my weight. It's really promising. He didn't look up from the screen. That's great, honey.
Is it covered?
Is it covered? No. Insurance denied it. He stopped typing. Okay, what's the damage? It's about $1,100 a month. Mark laughed. It was a short, sharp bark of a laugh. He closed the laptop. Sarah, that's a mortgage payment on a rental property. That's more than our car leases combined. I know it's a lot, but absolutely not, he said. And his voice wasn't angry, just final, logical. We are not spending $13,000 a year on something you can do for free. We have a budget. We have goals. Just cut the carbs again. Walk more. We can't just burn money because you don't want to diet. Because you don't want to diet. He stood up, kissed me on the forehead, a dry, perfunctory peck, and went upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen. The hum of the refrigerator sounded like a judgment. He didn't understand it. It wasn't about not wanting to diet. It was about the fact that I had been dieting since I was 12 years old. It was about the fact that my body felt like a prison. And he was the warden refusing to sign the release papers because it wasn't cost-effective. I turned off the lights. It was 2 a.m. Mark was asleep next to me, breathing in a steady, rhythmic cycle. He slept the sleep of the righteous, the sleep of a man whose debts were paid, and whose 401k was maxed out. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan cutting through the dark. I felt the weight of my own hips sinking into the mattress. I felt the heat of my body, the heaviness of it. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. I turned the brightness all the way down. I didn't go to Instagram. I didn't go to Google. I went to a credit card comparison site. My thumb hovered over the screen. I knew our credit score. It was excellent. Mark monitored it like a hawk, but he only monitored our joint accounts. I found an offer. Sapphire high-limit rewards. Instant decision. It promised. The APR was 29.99%. A predatory number. A number Mark would call financial suicide. But as I looked at the little Apply Now button, I didn't see an interest rate. I saw a life raft. I saw a version of myself that could walk into a room without pulling at her shirt. I saw a version of myself that Mark would want to touch again. I typed in my social security number. My hands were trembling so much I had to backspace twice. Annual income? I put in the household total. Employment status? Homemaker? I held my breath. The silence in the bedroom was deafening. If he woke up, if he saw what I was doing, I hit submit. A spinning wheel. Gray, then blue, then a burst of confetti on the tiny screen. Congratulations, Sarah. You are approved. Credit limit, $5,000. My heart slammed against my ribs. A rush of cold adrenaline washed over me. It was a cocktail of pure terror and absolute ecstasy. I had the money. I looked at Mark sleeping back. He had no idea. I had just bought a secret life, and the first bill wouldn't arrive for 30 days. The mailbox became the center of my universe. For 5 days, I lived in a state of high-functioning paranoia. Every time I heard the rumble of the USPS truck down the street, that specific, grinding gear shift, I would freeze. I had to get to the box before Mark got home. When the envelope finally arrived, it was nondescript, just a plain white envelope from Card Services. I ripped it open in the car, parked 3 blocks away from our house. The card was heavy, sleek. It felt like a weapon in my hand. I drove straight to the pharmacy. The fluorescent lights of the CVS felt aggressive. I walked to the counter, my pulse thumping in my ears like a techno beat. When the pharmacist handed me the white paper bag with the refrigerated box inside, I felt like I was buying contraband. That will be $1,112.40, the clerk said. She popped gum. She didn't care. She didn't know she was asking for the GDP of a small country. I inserted the card. My stomach dropped. Oh, hang on, the clerk said. Chip didn't read. Do it again. I forced a smile. I pushed the card in again. My hands were shaking so bad I almost missed the slot. Please work. Please don't call Mark. Please work. Approved, she said. I grabbed the bag and walked out, clutching it against my chest. I didn't feel happy. I felt like I had just gotten away with a bank robbery. Now I had a new problem. Storage. The medication had to be kept cold. But the kitchen fridge was Mark's domain. He knew exactly where the Greek yogurt was. He knew if the almond milk had been moved. If I put a bright white box labeled Mounjaro next to his kale, I was dead. I walked into the garage. It was humid in there, smelling of gasoline and potting soil. In the corner, humming loudly, was our chest freezer. I opened the lid. A cloud of frost rose up to meet me. It was a chaotic tomb of frozen goods. Bags of peas from 2023, generic brand pizzas, and there it was, a family-sized bag of Dino nuggets. The kids hadn't eaten nuggets in 2 years. They had moved on to protein bars and sushi. The bag was frosted over, forgotten at the bottom. I opened the bag, dumped half the fossilized nuggets into the trash, and slid the white box of pens inside. I covered it with the remaining nuggets and clipped the bag shut. Perfect camouflage. Buried under layers of ice and indifference, just like my secrets. The first week was a blur of nausea. They tell you about the appetite suppression, but they don't describe the feeling. It wasn't that I wasn't hungry. It was that food suddenly looked like plastic. We were sitting at dinner on a Thursday.
You're not
Mark
eating.
had made salmon. I took a bite, and my stomach lurched. A wave of cold
feeling
sweat
great.
broke out on my forehead.
migraine
I
coming
put the
on.
fork down. "You're not eating," Mark noted. He was cutting his fish with surgical precision. "I'm not feeling great," I murmured, pushing the plate away. "Think I have a migraine coming on." Mark looked at me over the rim of his glasses. "You've been tired all week. You're probably dehydrated. You need to drink more water, Sarah. It's free." "I know, Mark. I'll go drink some water." I went upstairs and lay on the cool tile of the bathroom floor, waiting for the nausea to pass. It felt awful. And yet, when I stood up and looked in the mirror, my face looked less puffy. I touched my jawline. I could feel the bone. It was working. Then, the digital bill arrived. I checked my email on my phone in the laundry room. Minimum payment due, $40. Total balance, $1,112.40. $40. That was manageable. That was easy. But Mark managed the checking account. He saw every transaction. Target, Shell, Whole Foods. I had to be creative. The next day at the grocery store, I bought the groceries. The total was $180. At the checkout, I selected cash back, $40. I pocketed the two $20 bills. Later, I drove to the bank and deposited the cash into the ATM, paying the credit card bill directly. In the Excel spreadsheet that night, Mark would see grocery store, $220. He would grumble about inflation. He would never know that $40 of that was servicing the debt of my secret life. It was a perfect loop. As long as I could skim a little off the top, I was safe. It was a Tuesday evening, 3 weeks in. I was in the garage. I needed my next dose. I had the lid of the chest freezer open. I was bent over, waist deep in the cold, digging through the bags of frozen spinach to get to the dino nuggets at the bottom. I had the bag open. My hand was inside, reaching for the pen. Suddenly, the door from the kitchen opened. "Sarah," I jumped. My hand jerked, knocking a bag of ice onto the floor. Mark was standing in the doorway, wearing his
doing?
running gear. He looked confused. "What are you doing?" he asked. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I was caught. I was holding a bag of nuggets that shouldn't be there, with a $1,000 secret inside it.
I was looking for ice cream.
My brain scrambled for an excuse. I was looking for ice cream. Mark stared at me. The silence stretched, thin and tight. He looked at the open freezer. He looked at the frantic flush on my cheeks. Then, he shook his head, a look of tired disappointment settling over his features.
Ice cream?
Ice cream, he
Sarah,
repeated.
we talked about
Sarah,
this.
we talked about
trying to
this.
lose weight.
You're trying to lose weight. You're digging through the freezer like a junkie looking for a fix of
You're
sugar.
digging through the freezer
He
like
sighed.
a junkie.
adjusting his watch.
Sugar.
Just close the lid, okay?
Just close the
You're
lid,
letting the
okay?
cold
You're
air
letting
out.
the cold air out.
It drives up the electric bill. He turned and walked back into the house. I stood there, shivering in the garage. My hand was still clutching the cold plastic of the nugget bag. He thought I was weak. He thought I was failing. He didn't know I was holding the only thing that was actually saving me. I pulled the pen out, shoved it into my pocket, and closed the freezer. Let him think I'm weak, I thought, the anger warming my blood. Let him think whatever he wants, as long as he doesn't look in the bag. 3 months later, I was a stranger in my own mirror. 195 pounds. I hadn't seen a number starting with a 1 since my wedding day. The change wasn't just visual, it was structural. My collarbones, which had been buried for years, re-emerged like lost ruins. The rings on my fingers spun loosely, and Mark noticed. The fiscal conservative suddenly found a new asset he wanted to invest in. It was a Saturday morning. I was folding laundry, wearing a pair of jeans that I used to keep in the back of the closet, the someday jeans. Mark walked in, coffee mug in hand. He stopped. He looked at the curve of my waist, then at the gap between my thighs. He set the coffee down. He walked over and wrapped his arms around me from behind. His hands didn't rest on my hips. They explored them. You look incredible, he whispered into my neck. Whatever you're doing, Sarah, it's working. I'm proud of you. He kissed the spot right below my ear, the spot that used to make me shiver. I leaned back into him, closing my eyes. I wanted to enjoy it. I wanted to feel desired. But as his hands moved over my stomach, all I could think about was the spreadsheet in his head. He was proud of the result. But if he knew the cost of goods sold, if he knew the profit margin was negative, he would be disgusted. His affection felt like a transaction I had paid for with a credit card that was about to explode. And then, the system crashed. I went to the pharmacy for month 4. I handed the clerk my card, the secret one. She typed for a moment, then frowned. Ma'am, the manufacturer coupon isn't going through this time.
The savings card,
the system says you've reached the annual cap on savings. The air conditioning in the CVS suddenly felt arctic. What does the price come to? Without the savings card, it's 1,250. My stomach turned to water.
I need a minute.
The limit on my secret credit card was $5,000. I had already spent over $3,300 plus interest. I didn't have room for a $1,200 hit without triggering an over-limit fee or, worse, a decline. I need a minute, I stammered. I walked out to the parking lot. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I couldn't stop now. I was 195 pounds. I was halfway up the mountain. If I stopped, the hunger would come back, the weight would come back. Mark's hands would stop exploring my waist. I needed cash. Fast. And I couldn't skim $40 at a time anymore. The pawn shop was 2 towns over. In a strip mall, next to a vape shop and a liquor store.
Please.
I had never been in one before. It smelled of stale popcorn and desperate decisions. I walked to the counter, clutching a small velvet pouch. Inside were a pair of gold hoop earrings Mark had given me for our 10th anniversary. He wouldn't notice.
For the lot.
I never wore them. And a heavy gold chain that had belonged to my aunt.
Fine.
The man behind the glass had dirty
Just cash,
fingernails and
please.
eyes that had seen everything. Gold's down today, he muttered, weighing the chain in his palm. I need 600, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Please. He looked at me. He looked at my manicured nails, my suburban haircut, my desperate eyes. He knew exactly what I was, a tourist in his world. $450 for the lot, he said. Fine, I said. Just cash, please. I walked out with a roll of bills in my pocket. I felt lighter, but it wasn't the weight loss. It was the hollowing out of my dignity. I deposited the cash into the ATM to pay down the card balance just enough to clear the charge for the medicine. My life became a ritual of destruction. The mailbox was the enemy. The shredder was my altar. Every day, I beat Mark home by 20 minutes. I stood by the door like a goalie. Any envelope that looked like a bank statement, a credit offer, or a privacy notice for Sarah Miller was intercepted. I would take them to the home office. I wouldn't even open them. I fed them into the shredder, watching the white paper turn into confetti. Zzz, zzz, zzz. It was the only sound that calmed me. The sound of evidence disappearing. The pile of white ribbons in the bin grew higher every week. A snowy mountain of lies. The terror peaked on a Tuesday evening. We were driving to his parents' house for dinner. We were on the highway. Mark was driving his pristine SUV. The cabin was quiet, just the low hum of the tires and an NPR podcast playing softly. My phone was connected to the car's Bluetooth, but I had the audio routed to the handset. Suddenly, it rang. The dashboard screen lit up. Incoming call. Toll-free caller. Mark glanced at the screen. Who's that? My heart stopped. I knew that number. I had memorized the prefix. It was the fraud department of the credit card company. They called when I made large payments or odd purchases. If I didn't answer, they would freeze the card. The next time I tried to use it, it would be dead. Probably just spam, I said, my voice tight. I'll ignore it. If it's spam, block it, Mark said, eyes on the road. The phone kept ringing. Buzz, buzz, buzz. If I ignored it, the card froze. I had a payment due tomorrow. Actually, I said, reaching for the phone, I've been waiting for a call from the school about the fundraiser. I hit answer and quickly toggled the privacy mode so it wouldn't play over the car speakers. Hello? I said. A robotic voice barked into my ear. This is the Fraud Prevention Department. We are verifying recent activity on your Platinum Rewards card, ending in $4,098. Did you attempt a payment of $450 at an ATM in Edison, NJ? I looked at Mark. He was checking his blind spot, humming along to the radio. Yes,
to the fundraiser.
I said. Excuse me? Mark asked. Yes, to the fundraiser?
Hang on, honey.
I covered the microphone. Yeah, just hang on, honey. I went back to the phone. Yes, I whispered to the robot. That was me. Thank you. Your account is now verified. To hear your current balance of $4,200, press 1. I hung up immediately. My hands were sweating so much the phone was slippery. Everything okay? Mark asked. Yeah, I exhaled, staring out the window at the blurring trees. Just logistics. Boring stuff. I looked at my reflection in the side mirror. I looked thin, but inside the car, the air felt so thick I could barely breathe. I was trapped in a moving metal box with the man I loved, and I was lying to him with every breath I took. 8 months in, the metamorphosis was complete. 170 pounds. I stood in the fitting room at Nordstrom, staring at the woman in the mirror. She wore a size 8 wrap dress. It draped over her hips like water. There were no rolls, no pinching fabric, no need for Spanx. I turned to the side. Flat stomach, defined jawline. I looked like the woman Mark had married 15 years ago. I looked like the woman I was supposed to be. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt like a fraud. I looked at the price tag on the dress. $248. I did the math instantly. $248 was 20% of a Mounjaro pen. It was the interest payment on my secret card for 2 months. I put the dress back on the hanger. I couldn't afford to be this beautiful. I walked out of the store empty-handed. The financial rot had spread deep. The balance on the secret card was maxed out. $5,000 limit reached. The interest was compounding daily, 29% eating me alive. I had opened a second card, a smaller one with a $2,000 limit, just to pay the minimums on the first one, and buy groceries to cover the cash I was skimming. I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, and now Paul was broke too. But Mark? Mark was ecstatic. He saw the natural results. He saw me eating small portions of grilled chicken and vegetables, because I physically couldn't eat more. He saw me walking with energy. To him, this was a victory of discipline. It was cost-effective health. "We should celebrate," he said one morning, watching me zip up a pair of pants that used to be too tight. "Really celebrate. Let's go to Le Jardin tonight. Just the two of us." Le Jardin, the most expensive French restaurant in the county. "Mark, that's expensive," I said, the reflex of a debtor kicking in. "We can afford it," he smiled, adjusting his tie. "I got my bonus, and you deserve it. You've worked so hard." I forced a smile. "Okay, let's go." The restaurant was dim and smelled of butter and truffles. We ordered a bottle of Bordeaux. We ordered the tasting menu. Mark was charming. He held my hand across the table. He looked at me with a heat I hadn't seen in years. "I feel like I have my wife back," he said softly, swirling his wine. "You seem lighter, happier." I swallowed a lump of guilt along with the foie gras. "I am." I lied. "I really am." And in a way, I was. I loved this body. I loved sitting in this chair without the armrests digging into my thighs. But the ghost of the debt was sitting right there at the table with us, invisible and hungry. Then, the check came. Mark reached for his jacket pocket. He patted the left side, then the right. He frowned. "That's weird," he muttered. He checked his pants pockets. "What is it?" "My wallet," he said, laughing nervously. "I must have left it in my other blazer. I switched coats at the last minute." He looked at me, an apologetic grin on his face. "Babe, can you get this? Use the joint debit. I'll transfer the money as soon as we get home." My blood ran cold. I had the joint debit card in my purse, but I knew something he didn't. 2 days ago, I had tried to use it to pull out $200 cash for a partial payment on my secret card. The machine had given me a warning. Daily limit reached. I had panicked and stopped, but I wasn't sure if the bank had flagged the account. If I used the debit card now, and it declined, Mark would check the app. He would see the withdrawal attempt. He would see the cash advance pattern. I couldn't risk it, but I had the secret card, the platinum one. I had paid $500 onto it yesterday. It should have just enough cleared credit to cover dinner. If I used it, I could say, "Oh, I just used this old rewards card I found to get the points. I'll pay it off with the transfer." It was a gamble, but it was better than him looking at the joint checking history right now. "Sure," I said, my voice trembling. "I got it." I opened my purse. I bypassed the blue debit card. I pulled out the sleek, heavy silver card. I placed it on the black tray. The waiter took it. "Thank you, madame." Mark looked at the tray as it was whisked away. He squinted slightly. "New card?" he asked. "Just something for airline miles," I said quickly, trying to be efficient, like you. He smiled. "Smart girl." We waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. I watched the waiter at the POS terminal in the corner. I saw him swipe. I saw him pause. I saw him swipe again. He looked at the receipt printer. Nothing came out. He looked up and caught my eye. My heart stopped. He began walking back to our table. SFX. Footsteps approaching on hardwood floor, getting louder. He arrived at the table. He didn't put the folder down. He held the card in his hand. "Ma'am," he said, his voice dropping to that professional, devastating whisper. "I'm afraid the card was declined." Mark's smile vanished. "Declined?" "Yes, sir. It says limit exceeded." Mark frowned. He looked at me. "Limit exceeded? Sarah, you said you just got that card for points. How can it be over the limit?" I don't know, I stammered. It must be a glitch. Their system is probably down. Here, Mark said, reaching out his hand. Let me see it. I'll call the number on the back. It's probably a security hold. No, I said too loud. People turned to look. Sarah, Mark said, his voice changing. The warmth was gone. The auditor was back. Give me the card. I froze. The waiter stood there, awkward, holding the silver plastic that contained my entire hidden life. Mark reached out and took the card from the waiter's hand. He looked at the front. Sarah Miller. He flipped it over. Signature. He looked at the type. Platinum high interest. He pulled out his phone. Mark, don't, I whispered. Tears pricked my eyes. He ignored me. He opened his banking app. He didn't see the card there. This isn't linked to our accounts, he said, looking up at me. His eyes were cold, calculating. What is this, Sarah? And why is it declined at a dinner if it's new? I couldn't speak. The lie had run out of road. Waiter, Mark said, not looking away from me. Do you have Apple Pay? I can use my phone. Yes, sir. Mark paid the bill with his phone. He stood up. He didn't offer me his hand. Car, he said. It was a command, not a suggestion. I stood up. My legs felt weak. The beautiful size 8 dress felt like a costume I had stolen. We walked out of the restaurant into the cool night air, but I couldn't feel the temperature. All I could feel was the impending crash. The numbers had finally caught up. The drive home was a 20-minute funeral procession for my marriage. Mark didn't say a word. He drove with both hands on the wheel at 10 and 2, his knuckles white. The silence wasn't empty. It was pressurized. It was the sound of a man running numbers in his head, calculating the extent of the betrayal. I stared out the window at the passing streetlights. Flash, flash, flash. Each one felt like an interrogation lamp. When we pulled into the driveway, he turned off the engine but didn't open the door. Kitchen, he said. Laptop. Now. I sat at the kitchen island, the same place where he had denied the insurance cost 8 months ago. The room was bathed in the harsh blue light of his MacBook. He had the credit card statement pulled up on the screen. I had been forced to log in. He scrolled and scrolled and scrolled. CVS Pharmacy? He read aloud, his voice devoid of emotion. CVS Pharmacy. Pawn shop. Jesus. Sarah. Pawn shop? Interest charge. Over-limit fee. CVS Pharmacy. He stopped scrolling and looked at the bottom line. $7,842. He looked up at me. His face wasn't red with rage. It was pale with shock. To a man like Mark, this wasn't just spending. It was infidelity. It was financial adultery. $7,000, he whispered. You opened a line of credit at 30% interest to buy drugs I told you we couldn't afford? Behind my back? I had to, I said, my voice shaking. You had to? He slammed his hand on the granite counter. SFX, a sharp, loud slap of skin on stone. We are a team, Sarah. I manage the money so we can retire. So we can be safe. You just lit $8,000 on fire because you couldn't stick to a diet? It wasn't a diet! I screamed. The sound of my own voice shocked me. I never yelled. I was the peacemaker. But the dam had broken. I stood up. It wasn't about the food, Mark. Look at me! I gestured to my body, to the size 8 dress, to the waist he had been holding an hour ago. You didn't look at me for 3 years. I was crying now, hot, angry tears. You looked through me. You treated me like a bad investment. I was lonely, Mark. I was drowning in that house, in that body. And you just kept showing me spreadsheets. So you lied? He shouted back. Yes, I lied. I stepped closer to him. I bought my life back. I bought us back. That dinner tonight, the way you looked at me, I paid for that. I paid $7,000 so my husband would want to touch me again, and you know what? It was worth every penny. The silence that followed was absolute. The refrigerator hummed. The clock on the wall ticked. Mark stared at me. His mouth was slightly open. The anger in his eyes was slowly being replaced by something else. Something like horror. He looked at the credit card statement on the screen. Then he looked at me. He really looked at me. Not at the debt, but at the desperation that had caused it. He sat down on the bar stool, deflated. He rubbed his face with his hands. You think I only love you because you're thin? He asked, his voice cracking. I think you treat me better now, I whispered. And I was willing to go bankrupt to keep it that way. Mark closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. He was the fiscal conservative. He dealt in facts. And the fact was, I was right. The dynamic had changed. He couldn't deny the data. He reached out and picked up the platinum card from the counter. I flinched, expecting him to throw it. Instead, he walked over to the drawer where we kept the scissors. The distinct, crunchy snip of plastic being cut. He cut it into 4 pieces. He dropped them into the trash. He turned back to me. We are going to pay this off, he said. His voice was firm again. The manager was back. It's going to take 6 months of austerity. No eating out, no vacations. I'm taking over the grocery shopping. You don't touch a credit card again. I nodded. I expected this. It was fair. But, he continued, looking down at his hands, I will add the medication to the monthly budget. My head snapped up. What? I'll move the allocation from the travel fund, he said, not meeting my eyes. If it means that much to you, if I made you feel like you had to hide this, then that's a debt I need to pay too. He walked over to me. He didn't hug me. He was still too angry, too hurt for that. But he placed a hand on my shoulder. Go to bed, Sarah. We have a lot of work to do tomorrow. I stood in the bathroom, washing my face. The water was cold. I looked up at the mirror. The woman staring back was thin. Her cheekbones were sharp. Her collarbones were visible, but her eyes looked tired, older. I had lost 45 pounds. I had gained a massive debt, and I had put a crack in the foundation of my marriage that might never fully seal. I dried my face with a towel. I had the body I wanted. I had the husband I wanted. But as I turned off the light, plunging the room into darkness, I realized the truth. The weight is gone from my hips, but it didn't disappear. It just moved to my conscience. And that is a much heavier thing to carry. The price of beauty is always high, but the tax on a lie is infinite. Would you have confessed sooner? Or would you have kept the secret as long as the credit limit lasted? Final disclaimer. This was a fictional narrative inspired by real human experiences, not medical advice.